Last week, I was honored to be invited by Apple to be a guest at the iPhone 14 launch. I can't really describe how much this meant to me. I remember watching Steve Jobs announce the very first iPhone, and back when I worked at the museum, my coworkers and I would arrange our entire lunch hour once a year in September just to see what Apple was coming up with next. It was such an honor to be invited out for this event. After the keynote presentation and press event, Apple arranged for me to get to go inside Apple Park to demo the new phone with worldwide iPhone product line marketing manager Francesca Sweet and also Vice President of Camera Software Engineering John McCormack. It's extremely rare to be invited to film inside the ring, so to speak, and so I found it only fitting to film this entire video on iPhone. It was such an honor to be able to demo this new camera system and sit down and talk to Francesca and John about the technical aspects of iPhone 14.
So we have an all-new Photonic Engine, which is a reimagined image pipeline, and what we were able to do is bring deep fusion earlier in the process. And so in order to do that, we had to rethink from the ground up, and this is John's work. And we've looked at uncompressed images and being able to process pixel by pixel, do deep fusion earlier, which means we're able to retain more detail, all of the information. So when we take it through the image pipeline, we are able to increase our light performance by 2x and even more on some cameras.
This obsession with light, that is the core of the Photonic Engine, because our inspiration for Photonic is to be able to get the absolute most out of every single camera in any different lighting condition. So let me give a couple of examples. This year, we really wanted to get into that mid and lower light photography and push that as far as we could. And to do that, we wanted to get the most information off the sensor we could. And so typically, or traditionally, our pipeline into deep fusion has been a 12-bit pipeline. This year, we've moved that to be a 16-bit full color pipeline. And so now we are pushing way more information, way more data, way more color.
That's a big leap.
Into deep fusion. It is. I mean, you can do the math, and it's a big number, the amount of the amount of more information is. But this gives deep fusion so much more to operate on. And this is especially important as the light gets lower, and because as light gets lower, colors kind of like smush together. And so this gives us more information to pull those colors apart. So now deep fusion can faithfully recreate exactly what the iPhone saw, or exactly what the human eye saw. Or moving to the 48, as we looked at building the 48, we realized that the traditional method of the step called demosaicing, which is taking a bunch of raw data from the camera and turning it into something that starts to look like an image, the traditional demosaicing methods just weren't going to work. They weren't going to be good enough. And so we built a whole new machine learning based block that is at the very first stage of the pipeline. And we can do this because of the power of the A16 Bionic. We've got this supercomputer that takes this 48 megapixel image, gobbles it up, and puts out this extraordinary result. And we've been super happy with how far we've been able to get. And now with all of this extra color detail and with all this extra image fidelity, our back-end processing, our semantic developing has taken a big leap forward this year as well. So now our skin tone, skin texture, color rendering, so much higher fidelity this year. So it's a really big year for iPhone photography. It's a really big year for photography in general, because back to your point, throughout the history of photography, there have been these big leaps. And I think computational photography is another one of those really big leaps that we don't get to sit on the sidelines of. We're right in the middle of it.
Right in the middle. I love that. Well, and I think that a lot of people don't think, and nobody would have a reason to think if you're not a photographer who thinks about images all the time. Like, when we were talking about low light, and Francesca, you were showing me some images yesterday, and we were talking about how you get those low mid-tones before they start going into shadows. And you might have this beautiful orange light, or skin tones are a great example, and it's not one color. It's thousands of colors that your eye is processing, and to get what's essentially a monochrome sensor to render that out and split it into color is a big challenge. Now, you guys went with a quad Bayer filter on the 48 this year.
We did.
Which is probably going to get into a very technical explanation, but that has a lot to do with the enhanced quality on that, I'm sure.
Well, what it gives us is it gives us so much more resolution.
Yeah.
But it also comes with a set of challenges because the traditional Bayer filter has been around for a long time and it's a very well understood thing. Now with the new sensor pattern on the 48, it really is like something that landed from another planet. And so we went and tried to use the traditional demosaicing techniques, and it gave us an okay level of quality, but we really weren't able to go and pick out those fine details as you move from one shade of orange to a slightly different shade of orange, which is the thing that gives you that beautiful kind of rendering, that differentiation in fine color. And this is where we went back and said, let's look at solving this another way. What resources do we have? How can we go use our investment in the Photonic Engine to be able to just go and solve this problem? And so then we had a bunch of really smart mathematicians go spend a long time, and they came out with something fantastic.
That's amazing.
So, I mean, this is really the benefit of iPhone, right? We have incredible sensors, incredible lenses. We've pushed the limits of what we can do. We are introducing these really pro-level features like 48 megapixel sensors, doing this intelligent computation that allows it to take the full advantage of the light that's coming in. And then we do all of this intelligent processing in the background. And so what the user sees is just a gorgeous image at the end of the day.
That's what's important.
That's what's important.
Well, the other cool thing that I love is the way you guys handle the 48 megapixel sensor, because there's been other companies that do it. So for those who are not familiar, I mean, kind of the standard with a phone is a 12 megapixel resolution. A lot of people, that's a lot of resolution, actually. If you just go back a couple of years, a DSLR with 12 megapixels was considered top end.
Absolutely.
And so introducing a 48 megapixel sensor, you have two outputs with this. The standard output, you can go down to 12 megapixels, which gives you the ability to crop that sensor.
Well, that's...
And you get a fourth lens.
Yeah, and it is. It's like we took iPhone and put a fourth lens on the back of it.
Yeah,
because
it's
what
perfect.
we do is we take that middle 12 megapixels, which
It's just
is...
cut out of the middle of the sensor.
Yeah, and that's a 2x optical. So it's not digitally enhanced, it's a 2x optical. And so now it is like it's got a fourth lens. But the other thing this lets us do is bring back that 2x portrait mode. And so now folks can use that beautiful depth of field rendering on that storied 50 mil focal length. So you actually get the depth of field, but then in portrait mode as well, we can do the computational bokeh on top of it.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing. So what are you most excited about with iPhone 14 now?
I'm most excited about action mode. Key to get into action mode is to go into your video mode, and then you'll see at the top left there's
the new action icon.
Action mode.
The running man.
The running man, and then
And I'm
turn
in
him
action
on,
mode.
and then you're ready to go.
And so now, then, I'm going to do this crazy thing of, I'm going to try and follow them. And as you see, I'm running around. And there is no way that would be usable footage.
So the key though is you don't you just shoot. You just shoot. You don't worry about it. All right.
So now, you look at the footage that comes out, and it's almost like I'm a real sports videographer. I don't understand how that happened. And I'm one of the engineers who built this thing. It just feels like a miracle.
So not just that, but like there's not a lot of action coming off you. No offense, John. But I can be actioning and do my crazy shots where I
Run around.
Yeah.
Hold it with one hand.
hold it with, don't even worry about it, huh?
And then I can be moving too.
All right, yeah, we can, and then we'll start the Russian cat music. There you go.
Maybe we'll get these guys quietly, doing something.
You can dunk one, right, Francesca?
Yeah, right.
Look, you got your tennis shoes on. You ready?
I'm living out my middle school dream.
Love it. And just follow.
With traditional image stabilization, it's all about kind of dealing with like the minor handshake.
Yeah, the little jitters.
And so like, which is the thing that you had kind of really what that replaced was those kind of like small gimbals that we all used to carry around. And now those are basically a thing in the past. Computational photography, computational videography replaced the gimbal. And so our next challenge was, if you look at sort of folks on the sidelines of sporting events, they've got these giant back-mounted rigs
Right.
that they're kind of like hanging cameras off. And so our question was like, well, can we get rid of things like that too? Because to your point about folks with little kids, that is sports photography. So like, but mom and dad aren't going to go and pick up some giant Steadicam rig to chase their toddler around. And so our question was, well, can they just do that with the iPhone? And so what we do is, because we've got such a large sensor with 4K and so much processing power, we can say, well, let's shoot this in 4K. So we've got this giant overscan region that we can then stabilize.
Yeah.
And as we do that, then you get to basically focus on living your life, chasing your toddler through the room, watching your friends play basketball, but doing it from the middle of the basketball court and like sort of following them around and not having to think about like, oh, this is going to look like unstabilized garbage, because we take care of that for you.
Yeah,
it's pretty cool.
You have something that's usable in the end. You guys, thank you so much. This is such an honor to be on the Apple campus. I've never been here before, and here we are in front
Welcome.
of an actual orchard.
Yes.
There we go.
And you can't see it in this shot, but we're in the center of the bowl here. This is a real treat.